Welcome to 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. I'm your host, Brian Slagel. I am the CEO of Metal Blade Records. And today we're going to talk about a record and a song that appeared first on Metal Blade Records and still does today, actually. Slayer, Chemical Warfare. One that I also helped produce along with the band. And another person we're going to talk to today, Mr. Bill Metoyer. The next time you're in Las Vegas, or if you currently live in Las Vegas or the Las Vegas area, you need to visit the Metal Blade Museum. Now, not only are there artifacts from Metal Blade artists like Metallica, Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, Gwar, Lizzie Borden, there's also artifacts from bands that we had something to do with as well, like Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, Alice in Chains, Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, Alice Cooper, all sorts of stuff. So it's a really great metal museum. It's located right near the Strip in Las Vegas. Also, our retail store is also now in the museum. So you can go pick up your Metal Blade vinyl, CDs, collectibles, shirts, all sorts of cool stuff. Just go to metalblade.com/museum for all the details. But we're going to bring in a friend of mine that I've discovered on TikTok first. And then I met him and realized he's just as big a fan in real life as he is on TikTok. So if you haven't seen his TikTok or really any of his social media stuff, you should go check it out. Like, he is quite the fan. The Metal Horror Madman is what he goes by. So check that stuff out. We're going to talk to him about Slayer. And he, of course, has one of the most famous Slayer screams, I guess, of all time, which he does often and does it so great. So we'll have him do that today, and we'll talk about Slayer. It's probably his favorite band, I think. As I said, we're going to talk to Mr. Bill Metoyer, who also was a part of making this song, Chemical Warfare by Slayer. But first, let's go up to Canada and see what Mr. Martin Popoff has to say.
Yes, indeed, Brian. Excellent choice. Chemical Warfare from Slayer. This is from the Haunting the Chapel EP, June 84. The debut, Show No Mercy, is December 83. Of course, this is kind of a stepping stone, an EP on its way to Hell Awaits. The idea here is that the debut did rather well, sold 40,000 copies pretty quickly. It's time to get them back in the studio. They'd been playing a couple of these songs live already. But the great thing about this EP, so it's only got 3 tracks, but it is 13 minutes long. This song itself is 6:02. This is where Dave Lombardo made the acquaintance of Gene Hoglan. Gene Hoglan in the studio. There's no carpet on the floor, so they're recording this on concrete, and Gene is kind of holding the kit together, which is moving all over the place. Gene is roadieing for them, teaching Dave double bass, and you really hear that on this EP. This is a showcase for Dave Lombardo's coming out party in terms of being, the drum tornado. Chemical Warfare itself is mostly fast, and it's got the same sort of D-beat drumming style for part of it, as does the as we hear on the debut, but it also has this trademark thing that Dave's going to do a lot, which is the rapid fire double bass on a halftime sort of beat. So there's a lot of that in here as well. That's also in Captor of Sin. It's also in Haunting the Chapel, the title track here. The production is not as sharp and punishing. Well, it's punishing in a different way, but it's not as sharp and high fidelity as we're getting from Metallica. So even though this is absolutely pioneering thrash, I mean, they already were on the debut, and they're even more so coming up. But it's definitely got this kind of wet, more wall of sound than you get on Ride the Lightning or Kill 'Em All or Master of Puppets. It's a really cool, obviously rapid fire rhythm guitar playing as well. Like I say, D-beat, halftime. When you get to the end of this, again, 6 minutes long, they do one of these ridiculously big, noisy wind-ups. Almost reminds you of LA Blues from the Stooges. But yeah, big, crazy wind-up at the end. And you just hear Slayer advancing rapidly on here. And these are 3 beloved songs on a standalone EP. I'm never a big fan of EPs. I interviewed Billy Idol recently, and he goes on about this. And I realized nobody cares about EPs. He put out 2 EPs, and he was kind of joking about how I think he came to the realization EPs are just kind of a strange thing, and they kind of mess up a catalog, right? But no, this one we get, a full-on Slayer album cover. We get a title, a great title in Haunting the Chapel. Again, this is Brian and Bill recording with, producing, mixing, engineering with the band on this, and actually, really, really cool stuff, and a legendary release, and just keeping the pipeline filled with product as we await Hell Awaits.
And yet again, we welcome back the infamous, the legendary Mr. Bill Metoyer, who, amongst recording probably hundreds of records, I would imagine, also has a really great podcast that he would like to promote too. That's really cool. So take it away, Bill. You have the stage. The floor is yours.
The podcast we have is called The Candle Power Hour, and it's about the entire entertainment business, not just music, lighting. We have a bus driver that came on the podcast that was the driver for so many famous bands. He's got a lot of stories, and that's the type of people that come on the podcast. It's called The Candle Power Hour. All you have to do is put The Candle Power Hour, and then it'll pop up. It's on Spotify, Apple, any place you look for your podcast.
So, same place. So whatever you're listening to this podcast on now, you can also listen to The Candle Power Hour. Anyway, we're going back to our old days, talking about some Slayer, and this is Chemical Warfare. What do you remember about this track, Bill?
I guess it was like the third time that I had actually been in the studio with them, because we did the one song for the Metal Massacre. Then we did Show No Mercy. And then we do this EP. You could see the progress that those guys were making. Every time they came in, they got better. The tracks seem to have gotten faster, especially I hate listening to stuff that I worked on, man. I just don't. But, I was forced to go back and listen to the song, and I forgot how friggin' cool it was. I mean, from the way it starts, one guitar, then the second guitar comes in doubling, and then the bass hits. Just that part is cool. And then the way it ends with all the noise at the end, I'm like, wow, man, that was pretty awesome. The good old days.
It was fun being in the studio with those guys because, again, you're watching these four guys just become... I mean, you must have thought, I thought when we're in the studio with them, even on Show No Mercy, I go, this is something special here. Like, these guys just aren't like all the other bands we've worked with, and no offense to everybody else who are all great, but there was just something different and special about these guys. They were so young and so talented, and like you said, every time we got back in the studio with them, it's like, oh God, these guys have gotten even better at playing and writing songs, and it was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, their riffing got faster but better. How the hell can they play so fucking fast and just be so tight?
Well, I remember back in the day, because I think I've told this story before on this podcast, but Metallica and Slayer weren't very... Not that they weren't very friendly, but they just didn't live anywhere near each other. And it obviously became further when Metallica moved up to San Francisco. But they would always ask me, Metallica asked me, like, how fast is the new Slayer stuff? And then Slayer would ask me, how fast is the new Metallica stuff? It's almost like a race to see, like, okay, who can write the faster stuff? So I think I might have had that conversation with Carrie or somebody in the band at that point fairly recently before this, because, it was like, whoa, this is fast. This is really fast.
Yeah, I remember Carrie going, this is fast, but it's not as fast as Metallica. Yeah. It's like it had to be this race to see who was the fastest band at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and you throw in, Exodus and, who Slayer was super tight with, and obviously Megadeth as well. So it's a really interesting time. I think we recorded this really fast. Speaking of fast, I think we recorded and mixed it like about a week or 10 days or something.
Yeah, it was very fast, and it's incredible how tight those guys are.
Yeah. Thankfully, because I think we did it fast because that was the first thing that we had actually funded. And of course, we didn't have very much funds back then. So
they were tight as hell. And when you're that tight, you didn't have to go back and do fixing and stuff like that.
Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day when I was listening. I go, I think the overdubs and anything we fixed on this was very minimal. And this time we did record the drums with the cymbals.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all we would overdub were the leads, and obviously the vocals. But they would just go. I'm still amazed at Dave's drumming on this EP. I mean, how fast, how precise, and again, they weren't playing to clicks. there was no digital to cut and paste. I mean, it was just him.
I mean, his drumming in general has always amazed me. Like I said, he's my favorite metal drummer of all time. The guy's just can do everything fast, slow, different paces. He can change paces really, really quickly. And we've had him on the podcast and we talked about Raining Blood. So it's a really cool podcast. And it's really interesting when you talk to him about drumming, especially now, you know, obviously he's a lot older. And the way he talks about it is almost like he's like a math scientist or something. Because almost like he's talking like in some other math language about the drumming and the different parts. And it's like, man, that's like really interesting about how his brain thinks over all these years. But all those guys, they're playing. I just remember even their guitars, they were, like as you said, they were so tight when they got in the studio. Because, you know, they'd written these songs and they were fairly new, but they'd rehearsed them and played them live. So, and I remember, I think that right before we went in to record, that they did like a lot of rehearsing of these songs before they got in the studio.
Yeah, you can tell by how tight they are, you know, and yeah, but I'm still just amazed on Dave's drumming in this. I mean, especially when you think about how young they were. I think about how young I was, much less those friggin' kids. It was amazing. So I'm glad that I did actually go back and listen to something that I did. How many friggin' years ago? I mean, I'm kind of the same thing with you. Like I don't like to go back that much, but I do, because I love so much of this music. I do go back and listen quite often to stuff like, you know, whether it's this or Omen or Fate's Warning or, you know, whoever it is. And, you know, some of the stuff I go, oh, wow, that actually sounds pretty good. The Omen stuff for me, for whatever reason, we were doing Omen around the same time as all of these bands, obviously. And the Omen stuff, which I remember being in the studio and not being frustrated a little bit with how it was sounding, but now listening to the stuff now, I'm like, man, stuff actually sounds really good. I did the same thing when it came to this EP, because I don't remember it sounding this good. And I started thinking, well, why does it sound this good? Is it because it's remastered or what the hell? But yeah, I was surprised. So thank you for asking me to do this, because maybe I'll go back and listen to some of the other stuff that I did when I was younger, especially things like Omen.
Yeah, it's I love those. I love those Omen records. Another band that didn't really kind of get as much as they should have, but yeah, great stuff. And certainly the Slayer stuff. I mean, like I said, this is kind of when they came in with these songs, and especially this song. I just like, wow, man, how that again, if you sit down and listen, I've done this before. I haven't done it recently, but I've done this before. Where I'll listen to albums in a row, and I'll be on a Slayer rant. And I go, okay, I'm going to listen to Show No Mercy, then I'll listen to Haunting the Chapel, then Hell Awaits, then Raining Blood, then South of Heaven. It's interesting to see how these bands, you know, change and mature and the whole thing. And I don't know that there was, what for Show No Mercy into this record for me was probably the biggest change, just in terms of playing, songwriting, the whole thing.
It still amazes me how young they were, how wild they were when they got in the fucking studio. They were just bouncing off the goddamn walls, and then they pick up their instruments, and it's like they turned into different people. You know, they were so tight, you know. That's it. They have always amazed me, and like you said, if you listen to all of their albums, how things change and how things got better and better. And it's like, how can you improve on this? But you know, they always seem to improve.
Yeah, you know, even all the way to now. I mean, Carey's solo record, I think is absolutely phenomenal. He crushed it, and he's been telling me that he thinks the next record's even better. So I'll trust him on that. But yeah, it's just so good at, especially those even as kids, they were never really the best of friends, but
yeah,
those four guys, when either they were on stage or in a studio, it was just pure magic.
Like I said, they were just tight as hell, and it's because I think they played a lot. It seems like that's all they wanted to do was rehearse and play and write music. So yeah, it shows It shows, that's for sure.
Yep, good stuff, good memories, and very historical. So, Bill, again, thanks for doing this. Always love when you do this, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Brian.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. Join host Evan Ross Katz on the official podcast for FX's new series, Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, and go behind the scenes with cast and special guests, featuring Sarah Pigeon, Paul Anthony Kelly, Grace Gummer, and Naomi Watts. FX's Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, I'm very excited for this next guest because I know he's excited. So it's always fun to bring in different people. If you don't know this person, you immediately must go follow him on TikTok or Instagram or any of his social media pages because it is amazing. And I came into contact with him via TikTok. He just popped up on my TikTok one day, and then I actually was a big fan before I even got to meet him. So super fun to welcome because he's a big Slayer fan, and we'll get to that in a second. But Joe, better known as the Metal Horror Madman, how are you, sir?
I am psyched, Brian. As you know, as I told you when you came by to stop on mine, you are a hero of mine. You are somebody I couldn't believe I was talking to as I was having technical difficulties. I'm talking to a guy that I've grown up with, has done everything in the world for metal from every genre. Without him, I never would have been into fucking Slayer! My favorite band of all time, my favorite Metal Blade, my favorite label of all time, and just getting to talk to you and all the stories and watching how you present yourself. And I've been watching this podcast religiously lately to try and get your techniques, just how balanced you are and matter of fact. We know I wear my heart on my sleeve. You can tell I'm excited. I was so excited that you invited me on here. I can't express my gratitude, so thank you very much.
Oh, well, thanks for doing that. I mean, it's fun to talk to big fans about people and bands that they're super into. I was going to say you also were very famous for your Slayer scream, which you already did for us. I might have to get you to do another one at some point. We'll let your vocals rest for a minute or two here. But so first of all, where did you first encounter Slayer?
Quick backstory. I got into metal from David Lee Roth, Even 'Em and Smile. I'm 48. Yeah, 1986, my cousin would come over. We'd play Atari. I was listening to the stuff like Cyndi Lauper, the Fat Boys, things of that nature. And he goes, try this on for size. I was like, I loved it. The music, the guitar. I got into Alice Cooper. I got into Sabbath, Ozzy. I got into Megadeth first. So Far, So Good, So What? And then I was in school and this kid goes, listen to Seasons in the Abyss. And I put the cassette on and I was like, this is noise. Like, I don't even know what's happening right now. This is too much for me. Like, I'm not vibing with this. And I let like a week or two go by and I'm like, it just caught me off guard. Like, I just felt like it was so intense. It was like punching me in the face. And then I went back to it, Brian, and it's like something hit me that stayed with me for the rest of my life. And I was like, this is what metal is. This is what metal's supposed to be. It was that album.
It's always interesting to talk to people where they come in with things like this. And certainly, when we were working with Slayer in the early days, I knew there was something going on here. And, we've talked a lot about Slayer on here, and we've had both Kerry King and Dave Lombardo on as well. And you could just tell there was something special about those guys. But that being said, when we're doing all these records, we're just making the music. You don't really think about where things are going to go and how big the band gets. And, I've been friends with all those guys forever. Kerry and I hang out all the time. But it still blows me away, again, because when you're creating stuff, you don't really think about who's listening and what people get into. But man, Slayer is one of those bands where you would, they were never a commercial band. They weren't like a radio band or any of those sort of things. But man, they're so huge and there's so many people that just love them to death, yourself included, obviously.
Haunting the Chapel was the first cassette I bought of them.
So you came in later on Slayer, and then you started backtracking, obviously, towards all the earlier stuff. As you're backtracking, what were you thinking?
The first thing that annoys me most when people pull this crap is they try and tell me, every Slayer album sounds the same. No Slayer album sounds the same. I will throw down over that. Talk about the most dynamic band of... I couldn't believe when I went from Seasons to Haunting the Chapel here. I was like, it was almost like a different band. And I loved this EP so much because it was so raw. It was so raw and intense, and I was like, this is so different. And then I'm a person of order. People think Metal Horror Madman's chaos and my videos are chaotic, but I always have patterns and little rhymes and little things going on in there, and I have to go back in order. And then when I'm like listening to, Show No Mercy and Hell Awaits and Live Undead, and I'm just going, everything about, they just kept changing. Every album sounds so different. And I just noticed they got more and more intense and more angry and more loud. And then I started like backtracking through old magazines I would buy and trying to read old articles on them and just watching like this progression of this band. I just got, which defined my whole life. I may surprise people, I'm a little intense. That's what I think of first when I think of Slayer. Intense and metal. Like, they're like ranked the big four. I scream Slayer 4 times in a row. I'm like, it's not even, and I love everybody else. I got every tattoo. I got Megadeth. I got a Not Man. I got Metallica on me. I got every band of the big four, but I just put Slayer there, and clearly not as big as Metallica, right? And I'm sure Megadeth sold more and everything, but when I think of pure, uncompromising metal, a band that just never cared, that's what hit me so early on. I was like, this band didn't care about selling out. This band didn't care about hits. This band just cared about intensity, loud. And then like I started doing more research, and I'm like, I'd read stuff like by Possessed and by Death and like stuff in like Metal Maniacs and all these different magazines, and they're all like Slayer. Slayer's like the invention of death metal. They weren't death metal clearly, but we all took from that. We wanted to see if we could take it a step further. So intensity, as I did a long-winded answer. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and I agree on all of that. Although it was interesting because when they did the Big Four, they did it. Obviously Metallica's headliner, of course, but then Slayer played right below them, then Megadeth, then Anthrax. So I thought it was interesting how they put that together. I think it's just based on at that point where the bands were at live-wise in terms of, how many people were going to their shows and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, those were such amazing shows. So do you have a favorite Slayer album?
I guess Seasons is always my favorite one because that was the first one. And like I said, it scared me the first time. I can't explain now. It seems so silly, but at that time as a young kid, like it did. I was like, this is crazy. And then Hell Awaits. I mean, the song, the album, that album to me birthed everything. That birthed the most intense metal that was ever going to be created when you hear that album. And I listened to that, and then for me, and I was about to say South of Heaven, but actually Divine Intervention. I'm a massive Divine Intervention fan. I was 17 when that album came out. So I guess a lot of that has to do with where you were, and I think of the friends I was with, and I left. I was working at Walmart. I was supposed to be back for 30 minutes from a break. I drove 2 hours. I lived on Long Island to go to the record store on release day to get that album. And that intensity, and people overlook that because Lombardo, which is tragic, a Slayer without Lombardo, clearly. But either Divine or South of Heaven is my top 3.
My favorite is Hell Awaits too. I like it because it's the most diverse Slayer record because it's you've got the slow heavy stuff, you've got fast stuff, you've got the longest song they've ever written on there, which because Carrie does not like to write long songs and does not like long songs at all. No. So you'll notice that I think most Slayer songs, and even his solo record, like 3, 4, 5 minutes is an extremely long song for him. At Dawn They Sleep was pretty great, and just such an interesting song. But there are no bad Slayer records, that's for sure.
None at all. And like I was saying earlier, when people go, they all sound the same. Like, I want to jump into the comment section and start struggling with people when they're telling me that. I'm like, this is the most diverse thrash band there ever was, and I love all these bands. I love them. The thing I think is like some of these bands changed their sounds, right? And people like disowned them, and they could say Diabolos with Slayer. I'm like, no, that's a heavy album. It's a different album. It caught up with the times, that album, but their fan base always stayed rabid. We're still the ones that, Jim Brewer's famous joke about Slayer fans, and we're like, that is us. And I haven't missed a beat And people will go like, how can you act this way at your age? I'm like, how can I not? I'll be this way till I'm in the ground. And then I want someone to dig me up. And I want to be a Slayer zombie running around the world screaming in people's faces, because this band is all about intensity. And you've got to be intense about Slayer. And I don't think there's not a bad album. The live albums are amazing. They've never put on a bad show. I know some of the members just don't get along anymore, but when you see them live now, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. Everybody was having a great time.
Yeah, they, I mean, famously, a lot of them never really got along. But you put those guys on a stage, and it's just pure magic. It's just pure magic. So whatever it is, it certainly works. So going back to this particular song, Chemical Warfare, where does this lie in your Slayer fandom?
This is top 3 for me, easy. And the reason is, first of all, 1984, to think that song is out there is just like crazy to me.
Right. Yeah.
Mind-blowing that a band delivering that ever got big. Like, it seems like that would be a death sentence to stay in the underground, where I'll talk to a lot of death metal bands nowadays, and they're like, hey, we're never going to get there because extreme music. The reason I love that song, it's like where I love Hell Awaits so much because the build-up, this is almost the reverse. This comes in, just punches you in the face, right? It's speed, it's fast. And then, like, I don't know, 154, 155, and it kind of, he does the scream, the famous Tom Araya, like, scream, and it kind of slows down, and you get, like, a break, which, it's like a Slayer concert in a song, where you have that little break for, like, they'll play something a little to calm you down, and then, like, a minute later, it's out of control, and then the song ends, it just sounds like chaos and noise, and I don't know what's going on anymore. I think there's times it's my favorite song, because it's just raw power. It's raw emotion. And it shows what, like, a band just coming up, hungry, and trying to make a name for themselves can do, and not care. It didn't seem like they had a care in the world except to play music.
You're totally right about that. They were just into the music, and every time, I talked to this with Metoyer, and every time we went in the studio with them, they got better.
Yeah.
Like each, from Show No Mercy to this to Hell Awaits, they just kept getting better. They're still really young kids, but they're playing at this high level. This song in particular was really interesting because it was so fast. Like when they first played it, it's like, oh my God, this is probably, I think, faster than anything they did on Show No Mercy. It's interesting you talk about the way the song goes. It's like super fast and super heavy, and then it kind of goes off in this little other element to it. And when I had Lombardo on, I talked to him specifically about this, because, I mean, he's my favorite metal drummer of all of them, which I told that to Lars and Charlie once, and they walked away from it. It was partly meant for them to do that. But anyway, Lombardo, his transitions are unreal. Like, he'll go from 1,000 miles an hour just to all of a sudden in a split second, like to a mid-tempo beat. You don't go like, oh, that was awkward. It's just so seamless. And I was asking him, like, how can you do that? And he was just talking to him about drums was like a math teacher, because he's saying everything in math equations and how he's doing stuff. And I'm like, can you speak it in dumb English that I can understand here? But it's truly amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I love, especially this early stuff. I mean, like I said, all the stuff is good, but these transitions and stuff were just like, I was sitting in the studio. I remember we were recording this, and we did it pretty quickly when we did the EP. And I mean, this song might have been 1 take, 2 takes. I'm not really sure, but you're just like, man, how are these guys playing this so fast and these different parts of it? And, for those guys to come up with the drum parts and then the riffs and put these songs together back then, I don't even know if they were 20 at that point when Haunting the Chapel came out. It's just so like insane. I listened to it the other day again. I'm like, man, this is still so good.
It's so good, and me too, Lombardo. Like, Lombardo to me set the bar for extreme metal drumming, and like, I hated when he left. It was heartbreaking. But then, like, I loved Grip Inc. I thought that band was like very, very underrated, and I really liked. I bought that album the day it came out, right? And I followed them, and then he's had right drumming with Tendencies and Bung. Like, this guy is just everywhere, and it's like my dream is just to see him one more time, one more run in that drum seat, because like, he is so one of a kind. I'm just going back in time thinking, like, you were there for this, and here I am. I'm a young kid, so I'm not there yet for it. But when I do get there, I still couldn't believe someone could play like that. Like you said, with the timing, with the speed, the guy doesn't miss a beat. The guy just is intense. That is one of the biggest travesties in metal to me, is that he's not there right now while they're doing some of these comeback shows, because the Slayer fan base, the metal fan base, is begging for it.
Yeah, I mean, things happen, and it is what it is. But I will say, I think Paul Bostaph is phenomenal,
Amazing,
and I love what he does. And a quick story about this: I don't think I've talked about it on this show yet, but I've talked about it many times before. But when Bostaph first came into the band, again, phenomenal drummer. I think he always did a great job. When they would play Dave songs, I kind of would miss Dave a little bit because Dave plays just a little off, like he's just like a split second off. And I was like, man, I kind of bummed out about that. So then Dave came back in for a while, and then he left, and then Bostaph came back again. So I went to go see them. I believe it was Bloodstock in Birmingham, England. And it was the first time I've seen Paul back in after Dave was in for a while. So I specifically wanted to watch I always watch in the crowd. I don't like to be on the side stage or anything. I'm a fan. I want to watch what the crowd sees. So anyway, so I made it so that I could be all the way. I was on Carrie's side, but I was behind the PA, so I couldn't see Paul. So I kind of wanted to listen to it. So he played it, and I was like, wow, this is the first time I don't miss Dave because of Paul. So I went backstage afterwards. I told Carrie, I said, hey man, that's like normally, because he knows me. I always tell him when I think about all this stuff, but I goes, this is the first time that I didn't miss Dave when you guys are playing his songs. And he told me that that's because, when Paul came back into the band, Paul actually sat down and apparently like re-listened to all that old stuff and learned how to play it like Dave played it with those little off things, because that's the brilliance of Dave, is it's not, and it's just like this split second thing, but that's what makes him so unique, and it makes it for other drummers hard to play. But he kind of figured out how to do that and master it. And ever since then, I'm like, I mean, look, I would love it if Dave was back in the band. Of course, he's a good friend of mine. I know there's just stuff that happens.
Yeah,
but Paul does a great job. And I wanted to ask you about, speaking of Paul doing a great job, about the Kerry King solo record. What do you think about that?
That album is crazy good. I thought Mark was the only singer that could do that justice. I was at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. I think it was Lamb of God. It was Kerry King. It was Mastodon. But I'm there for Kerry King. So I have free tickets. So like I'm in the back. I'm usually always up front now. Like when I was seeing that Louder Than Life or at Hershey, I'm in the pit. I will spend every nickel I have to get there. I'm sitting back there and I'm like, they're playing, and I'm like, this is just too good. I'm like, that band live sounds like the album. I'm like, this is crazy. And seeing Kerry King, as you know, he has that stage presence. And I'm composing myself. I'm with some people. All of a sudden, you start hearing like Raining Blood getting ready. You start hearing like, and it turns red. And I know everybody I'm with starts filming me. Like I see it out of my eyes, but I'm not even doing it because they're gonna film me. Like you've activated me now. And this song starts, and I start screaming fucking Slayer. I'm screaming. I turn around to strangers, and I'm grabbing them, screaming fucking Slayers in their faces. People come running down, screaming it with me. This happens often, everybody. I am a lunatic. My energy is it goes, it flows. And they're screaming. Even people that don't know me, like, dude, this is the greatest thing. And I'm causing like a frenzy. And I couldn't believe I got that excited for Kerry King solo, because you never know. You see some of the solo projects, some stuff's good, some stuff's whatever. And I'm like, this does it justice. I bought the album immediately. And then in between, I think Mastodon was on next. I went up to the concessions. You got to treat this voice when you're screaming like that 24/7. It dries out a little bit. So now at the Mohegan, and the casinos are different for the Madman. The concerts, they understand we're all crazy. That's a little more highbrow and stuff. And I'm out there, and of course the followers find me. Guys, I love attention. You got to come find me. And I'm screaming and Brian. I'm like inverted like The Exorcist. Like my back is bent. And I got people asking me to sign their vest and take pictures. And security is watching me like, we're going to bounce you the hell. You are not going to be here much longer. And I like turn around and go, everybody calm down. International sensation, superstar Metal Horror Madman. Just relax, giving the followers what they want. And I got them to laugh, which I just trying to get people to laugh and have a good time and love metal. But yes, that album is perfect. I could put that album in my top maybe 8 or 9 Slayer albums. I really mean that. Like that was, and Mark was I'm like, massive Death Angel fan. Love Death Angel, Frolicking Through the Park, Act 3, all those classics. So I'm going like, can he do this though? Like and I was like, oh, instant. I think that is an underrated album.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, that record's great. It's done really, really well. And same thing. I love it. It's certainly in my top, certainly my top 6 or 7 Slayer records for sure. And yeah, Mark's amazing. I campaigned for him because Kerry really wanted him in the band. And I love Mark. He's one of the nicest human beings I've ever met. And all the guys in that band are all really, really great people, which is another reason why it works so well, because they're all friends, and you can tell that it's perfect. And Mark is good. I wasn't sure like where he was going to go, because I mean, remember when Kerry was trying to look for a singer, he had a bunch of different things that he wanted a singer to do. And it's not that easy to find them, obviously, but he told me about Mark, and I go, whatever he does is going to be great. And Mark absolutely kills it, just kills it on there. Yeah, that record's kind of surprising, because Kerry kept hyping it up that, when he was making it. So he made it, in California, so he was in Vegas a lot, and we hung out quite a bit while he was making the record. But I didn't hear anything, and I didn't get a chance to go into the studio when they were in there. Once it was finished, he came over. I have a music house in Vegas. He came over and played it in my music house. I was like, wow. First thing I said is, it's a really angry record. It's very angry. Which is awesome. But yeah, it's really great. And I don't know if I'm breaking any news here, but I know he's working on a new one now that I know he's pretty excited about too. But yeah, that's good stuff. So I got to ask you about the whole social media frenzy thing. So where did that start and why?
It was during the lockdowns. I was losing my mind like everybody else. And I was sitting there, like, I don't know. And
yep.
Metal Horror Madman, Junior, my daughter, she's like, you know what? You'd be really good if you started doing TikToks. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I don't know what you're talking about. I did 1 or 2, and I forgot about it. Like a couple of months went by. I didn't check on views. I didn't check. And I'm a very competitive person. So I looked and I was like, oh, this stuff got no likes. That's unacceptable. So I started doing some other stuff. It wasn't really metal. It was kind of cringy in the beginning, like anyone. You're finding your way. And one day I did a video, and I put a wig on. I wasn't even comfortable at the time. I really wasn't comfortable in myself. I looked a lot different, if everyone knows that, Laura. I'm talking no tattoo. The confidence this has given me is crazy to show who I've always been. I'm doing it, and I'm people are dogging on Slayer. They're dogging on Slayer all over social media, and they're going, oh, this type of guy watches them, blah, blah, blah. It's like a dead band. And I'm like, this will not stand under my watch. This will not stand. So I start screaming fucking Slayer. Not crazy yet, though. Not crazy yet. Just kind of good. And I do more I'd scream a thrash a little bit more, and that started getting some traction. And then I just started getting angry about it. And I'm like, I'm calling out everybody. I will not tolerate Slayer slander ever in my life. And I am just screaming them at the top of my lungs. And neighbors in here, you will hear when I do it at night, dogs barking in the neighborhood. I'll go outside and you can hear echoing through the thing. And I am screaming, and it starts catching on. And then I decide I'm out somewhere and I do one. And it people start hoarding me. And people start asking for videos of it. And then people I don't even know are you got to scream one of those for me. And my confidence just starts going through the roof. And I started inserting it in almost anything I did. And I just got more and more about it. And then I watched Slayer's popularity. I'll take credit for that, everybody. That's me. And I watched their popularity coming. And I'm going, oh, good, I'm part of this. It's like a movement.
Yeah.
And then we started going back to the shows. And I'm telling these young kids, I'm that used to be what you yelling Slayer is a rite of passage. You just do that no matter where you are. And when it's blowing up, and I'm blowing up on him, having a great time, and I'm very humble. I still can't believe when people want my pictures or videos. It's still crazy to me. And I go to some of these places and then I went to Louder Than Life, and I went to Hershey, and they were waiting for me. They were waiting for Metal Horror Madman there. But one of the highlights of it, as I was at Palladium in Worcester, Massachusetts, and Exodus is playing an upstairs show with no barricade. And I'm screaming my Slayers. And then like song 7 comes on, and I start to hear Raining Blood again. It's like a Kerry King story. And and it goes, and I'm screaming Slayers over the band. I'm screaming Slayers over the people. Gary turns and dead eyes with me and like literally is like, holy shit. The band stops for about 5 seconds. They stop because everybody now is just screaming fucking It's literally a frenzy. I put a video of it out and it like blew up, right? It blew up. Gary became mutuals with me, which is crazy. Like all this stuff. And I just went with it, and I try and keep it. Anyone knows my social media, it's a lot of fun. I'll hit on the metal moms and dance around. I'll wear short shorts. I'll scream the Slayers and the aggression. But my biggest message with Metal Blade was the diversity of the catalog always. Metal Blade, you never thought of ever, where I go, certain labels I think of as a death metal label or a hardcore label or thrash or a new metal or metal deathcore. Metal Blade, and that's what I've tried to do in social media. All metal's welcome. All metal is as good as any metal. If it's metal, it's good with me. I'm down with you. That's my message on social media is preach this thing. There's no outsiders in metal. The outsiders are the people that put us down, call us freaks, call us misfits, say we're too loud, we're too brash. How can I dress us like this? And at 48 with a purple beard walking in the store, cut off sleeves. This is me. I ain't changing. I ain't changing. And I always tell everybody, you don't have to change. This ain't Rocky IV. I can change. You can change. No, this is we ain't changing. We ain't changing. And that's why I really tweaked with Metal Blade because I just thought of all those albums. You've had the death metal, Cannibal Corpse, and then you have, King Diamond, Spider's Lullaby, and Voodoo and all this stuff. And you're just like, the diverse sounds, and other labels didn't believe in that. So I've carried that, and it's stuck with me my whole life of social media. Metal is about acceptance, diversity, and sticking together against those outside conformist people that want us to go away. So long story, but that's how it started. And that's what I'll say. And I will not let people badmouth genres and stuff. I just can't. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's cool.
Everything you say is exactly how most metal people feel, and on the diversity thing, I just love a lot of different types of music. So within the hard rock and metal stuff, so we've always when we started out, there wasn't a lot of extreme music, so we did just the core metal stuff, and then we kind of did some different things, and we did a bunch of punk rock bands, and we've kind of always had a pretty diverse thing. I try to make sure we keep it that way, so you're not just putting out death metal bands or something. But thanks for that. Your TikTok thing is really funny because I love TikTok, and I'm on there, but I don't use it to promote anything. I just love to see stuff because I've discovered a bunch of bands there, a bunch of cool stuff from when I'm in Vegas. There's cool things that come up, and the algorithms are really, really cool. And I don't know how that works there, but you popped up one day, just probably because I'm watching a lot of different metal stuff, and I'm like, this guy is awesome.
Oh, thanks, man.
Oh, it's great. I don't follow a lot of people, but I'm pretty sure that I followed you fairly early on. And then I just stuff started popping up. I thought it was really cool. Then when you reached out to me, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do whatever. And I got to have you on my podcast as well. So it's super fun. And what you do is, again, you guys have to go on and check it out. It really is it's what metal fans are all like and all should be like. And as you said, it's a real positive thing. It's just fun.
I'm all about fun.
Everything you do on there is super fun. Yeah, it's great. Aside from Gary, obviously, have you met any of the other guys in the band?
No, I haven't. And no, which is crazy, right? I always worry when I'll meet people. My thing is I'm still a fanboy. So I'll have people come up to me and I've had, a girl cry, and I've had kids just tweak, and they're just that's still me with a lot of this stuff. And I'll have people in the scene and in the industry always you gotta act like you've been there before. And I'm like, no, I don't. I want to meet these people. I'm always afraid if I met Tom or I met Kerry. I'm always I can't explain. Because Metal Horror Madman's changed my life, right? It's changed my life drastically. And I feel like I owe it to them and the music they've given me my whole life. And every time a Slayer album would come out, and I just love it so much. And it's always so happy when Kerry King put that album out. It was like him getting that angry sparked oh crap, we got to do some shows that he's not playing games anymore. And then he delivered. But oh yeah, it's such a dream of mine to meet Kerry or Tom, because I would just be I would just lose it. I can't. I mean, you hear me, right? Just mention it. Like I said, when I wasn't kidding. You saw my natural emotion meeting you, interviewing you. I've never been so off my game. I watched it after. I'm oh my God. I was just so nervous around.
You were fine. You were fine.
I just look so up to you. You're part of it all, man. I can't. I tell everybody, you don't understand. Without him, we missed everything. In a way, you saved metal, during those dark years. Death metal doesn't blow up, we're in trouble, it was in trouble.
I'm just a huge fan, always have been a huge fan, and I could never play an instrument, so I go, well, what can I do to help? But I never started out to start a label. It just kind of fell into it, and still kind of falling into it now. But I just, but it makes me happy to see people like you that really enjoy it, because that's, because I love it too. So I want other people to like what I like. So that's a big part of the reason for doing it. Yeah, I'll have to ask Kerry, because Kerry's not a social media guy. His wife is a bit, but I'll have to ask him. I said, you have to check this guy out. He'll love you, by the way, because all that stuff. He loves all stuff like that.
I always wondered, Brian. I was always like that. I was always like I was so happy when Gary was into it. Like Gary got it in a second. Like he was like, "Oh, this is what metal's all about too." He's like, "This is fun," and that's all I'm doing is I'm having fun, preaching positive messages, having fun, and then I love promoting bands. Like so, I started interviewing bands like crazy. I was doing it. I didn't have some stuff down. I'm way better now. I've got the record, all this stuff, and and it's always funny too. Like I just had like Necrofire, and it's like Metal Blade and Brian. I was like, oh, I just talked to him, and that new album is crazy. Like I'm gonna do such a promo video. I told him, I'm like,
oh, thanks.
Wait till you see, you'll be proud. Don't you worry. But I have that episode. I'm still editing to get out and everything. But like we were talking about what you talked about too, where it's like the label's there to help you, but at the same time, the band's got to have their stuff together and they got to have their business together. And like it was just so funny because everything you were teaching me, he was like. Before I could say it, he was like, that's the most important thing. And he's like, you can't expect a magic wand by the label either. Like they, we're going to give you guys everything. Now you made it. Like you got to put in your part. So I had to add that. Sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, dude, I literally could talk to you all day, but we have time constraints here thanks to the people who do this thing, and I guess people's attention spans. But you can actually, if you haven't yet, we have a YouTube page where the entire interviews that I do with all the guests are up because they're all kind of edited to fit into the show. So check that out. And thank you so much for doing this. That was a lot of fun, and thank you for all you do for metal too. We all appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. And just on the way out here, I got to say, for the rest of my life, I'm going to be screaming, "Fucking Slayer! I'm never going to stop thrashing!"
I was going to ask you for that, so you read my mind.
Thanks, man.
That was awesome, man. All right, thanks everybody for doing this. Mr. John Capoletti, better known as the Metal Horror Madman, and also Bill Metoyer, who we love talking to. As always, our theme music is from, and we forgot Mr. Martin Popoff as well. Can't forget Martin. He's such an important part of this show. And our theme music by Lizzie Borden, and of course, producer Christian Blatt, who keeps this whole thing on the rails. We'll see you guys next episode.
100! Slayer!
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.